All right, Buccaneer fans, welcome to a winning week edition of the No Quarter Given podcast. Our Buccaneers go to Dallas and defeat the Cowboys 19-3 to start off the year 1-0, give Todd Bowles his first victory as head football coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Welcome in, folks. Jason Powers, Peter Blake here. Welcome, Mr. Blake.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Much better now after a 19-3 beating of the Cowboys.
I'm telling you, I mean, that's the way you got to do it, honestly. And the way this whole team played, it could have been a lot worse than what it was. So they still have some things to work on. But at the end of the day, a win is a win.
No doubt about it. The No Quarter Given podcast is being presented by Beef O'Brady's, Hank's Barbecue, and Home Slice Pizza Company. Beef O'Brady's and Home Slice Pizza are both at the corner of Bush Boulevard and Himes Avenue over in the Carrollwood Forest Hills area of Tampa. So we appreciate their support of the podcast, and also Hank's Barbecue right off of North Dale Mabry and Waters, just past Waters on North Dale Mabry. So also want to remind you, Buccaneer fans, we're going to be at Beef O'Brady's on Saturday, September the 17th. We're going to be doing a little college football and NFL preview show from 2 to 3:30. So if you're in the area, I'd love to see you over there at Beef's. I know Peter and I are going to be there later in the month on a Thursday night when the Dolphins and the Bengals get at it late in September. So looking forward to being out there with Peter on Thursday, the 29th over at Beef's. You'll enjoy it, Peter.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Never been there before, but I've been to a lot of Beef O'Brady's before. So should be good. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, they did a great job remodeling the restaurant just in the last 30 days. So it looks great, and it's a great atmosphere for college and pro football and for your Bucs action on Sunday as well. All right, let's get into the action on Sunday night in Dallas. The two things I want to start off with the injuries: Chris Godwin, Donovan Smith. You know, what were your thoughts? Did you think that Godwin should have played in this game, or were you leery about sitting him out?
No, I mean, honestly, how healthy is he going to be if you sit him out for another 2 or 3 weeks? And the injury has nothing to do with the one that he recovered from. So I don't have any problem playing him. At the end of the day, if the Bucs feel like he's healthy, if the doctors have checked him off, if Chris Godwin wants to play football, why not? Injuries are a part of the National Football League. It's just the way it is sometimes. So is it disappointing that he got hurt? Yeah, absolutely it is, because he's one of your main weapons, and you're going to need him to have that production, and he may miss a couple weeks, but at the end of the day, he is still one of your best weapons. He had 98 catches last year. You need him on third down, and you saw the first play of the game, 24, 25 yards. He didn't show any effects that he was hurt from that ACL. So I absolutely agree with the Bucs and their decision to play him last Sunday night.
I agree with you. I think the injury was more of that he kind of bent over awkwardly on the low throw by Brady, and I think that's maybe where he strained the hamstring a little bit. It sounds like from what Todd Bowles said earlier in the week that it's not as bad as they thought it would be potentially. So it might only be a week or two. I don't expect him to play Sunday in New Orleans. I would think they would probably hold him maybe out of the Green Bay game and then maybe bring him back for the Kansas City Sunday night game as long as everything progresses. Other more concerning injury: Donovan Smith, left tackle, leaves the game. He kind of got his arm whiplashed on a pass protection play where there was a sack of Brady. You know, it sounds like, again, from what Bowles said, it's going to be more of a pain tolerance issue with Donovan, whether he can play or not in New Orleans. So the big thing here, obviously more concerning if it's Donovan because of Josh Wells having to step in to play left tackle. Do you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, of course it is. And Donovan Smith, had his moments during this game where, he gets out on the block technique-wise. He just knocked the hell out of the other player. And then he gets that spin move by Micah Parsons and looks completely lost. And then you bring in Wells by himself and don't even have a running back, although they did that later, which was interesting in itself. With Leonard Fournette in that chip block. Got to love that, which opened up a big-time play for Julio Jones. But, yeah, you're kind of concerned because guess what? This week you got Cam Jordan. You got a pretty good defensive line, although, It's not the best, but still, at the end of the day, there's a reason why Josh Wells is a backup in this league.
Right.
And the reason is you take a step back, even though fans are not the biggest of Donovan Smith, you still take a step back. So yes, it's concerning. Yes, it may change your game plan. You may have to keep a running back in on that side or a tight end. But we kind of saw that on Sunday night, didn't you? I mean, you saw more two tight end sets than I think you've seen in this offense in a little while now.
If you listen to our podcast last week, that was one of the points I made. I said, I don't be surprised if you see a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. And I was proven right. You saw a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. Kyle Rudolph wasn't even active. He was inactive. They played a lot of Otten and Keefe, whereas the blocking backs and then paired them with Cam Brayton, some different sets. So I liked what I saw. And again, you saw the balance in the Buccaneer offense. Yeah. 33 runs, 27 passes. A great balance by Byron Leftwich.
I love it. And you look at Leonard Fournette, 21 for 127. Big night for him. Like you talked about, that big-time block on Parsons, I can't get enough of it because Parsons was saying, that was a
cheap shot.
Cheap shot. And to me, it was a legal hit. And if the refs call a penalty on that, you might as well just take the helmets off at that point and not play tackle football anymore. So shame on Parsons, because he's a guy in the past, even when Chris Godwin got hurt with the Saints and there were fans out there complaining about that hit, he's the first person that said, hey, we play tackle football here. Okay, well, the same thing, Parsons. We play tackle football here. You got basically put down on the ground. So, deal with it on the next play.
I'm with you. Offensive line-wise, we had concerns about Gedeke and Hainsey. I thought they played really well. And if you notice where the Bucs ran the ball, a lot of the night was right behind Luke Gedeke and Hainsey over the left side. They got a lot of yards running over Gedeke, and I think you're seeing why the Bucs liked him so much, drafting him in the second round. Very good run blocker. He held up pretty good in pass protection. I didn't see any major, other than the 2 sacks. There weren't a whole lot of times Brady got hit.
And I think that was the encouraging thing about it, besides that one series with Parsons doing the spin move and then absolutely taking advantage of Josh Wells. Besides that, I think the offensive line did a pretty good job, although there were times when they got into the red zone and there were some breakdowns, and we talked about it. So they could have scored more points in the red zone, but at the end of the day, you kept Tom Brady pretty much clean. That's what you got to do. That has to be the onus week after week. You have that challenge this week in the Big Easy with the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, and if you're a Buccaneer fan, which we all are, the Bucs went up and down the field. They just couldn't convert in the red zone. That's the part. Again, does the absence of Gronkowski play a factor? Sure, but I think the Bucs, with getting Julio more involved, Gage more involved, the tight ends, I think that problem's going to get fixed. I'm not concerned about that problem at all. I think that'll get better and better as we move along with Julio. Couple cool things I liked with the offensive play calling. I liked you gave Julio a couple speed sweeps. He wasn't just involved in running pass routes. He ran the speed sweep a couple times. They threw the ball deep to Julio one time and they connected. A great throw and a great catch. So I liked what I saw out of the play calling. And again, Brady's smart enough to know when to throw a ball away. Even the ones we see as me and you and the fans see as an incompletion, a lot of times Brady just throws the ball away high or to the outside because he knows they're beat on that play. And that's the great thing about Brady. He doesn't take a sack, and he normally doesn't force the ball into coverage.
He doesn't, and that's the great thing, and that's the reason why you look at this statistic, Jason Powers, in the red zone since 2020, 59 touchdowns, 0, count them, 0 interceptions, and that's why so many teams love Tom Brady and hate Tom Brady, because he's not going to make that major mistake at a critical time in the red zone. And then on top of it, he still has the arm strength.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, I love how they were using Julio Jones and Chris Godwin on in rounds. And it seems like more teams around the National Football League are doing that, kind of taking a page out of the playbook for the San Francisco 49ers and how they use Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about it. And again, I think you'll see Russell Gage get integrated into the offense more and more as we move along here, especially if Godwin's going to be out a couple weeks. I think you'll see Godwin step into that number 3 role. You'll see he had a couple easy catches, But again, I think you'll see some more tight end catches here coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. So good, very encouraged by the offense. Again, more touchdowns, sure, but they went up and down the field that first 3/4 of the game. Move the ball. I won't say at will, but they ran the ball terrific. There were some gaping holes in some of those runs. I mean, it wasn't Fournette having to break tackles. There were several runs where he was 7-8 yards down the field before he got touched.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. Like you said, balance. When you're getting that balance, it opens up those plays down the field. That's what you saw with the Julio Jones at the end of the day with the 48 yards. And it's encouraging. It really is, because you still have some things to work on. You didn't necessarily play your best game, and you still won handily against the Dallas Cowboys. A tough road test, no doubt.
Let's go to the defense. Great effort by the defense. Again, when you and I talked about it last week, don't let CeeDee Lamb wreck the game. Great job covering CeeDee Lamb. A lot of Carlton Davis. You saw all the guys. Jamel Dean was on him. He had a couple catches. But again, they weren't going to let that guy beat him. The Dallas number 2 and 3 receivers were not very good, did not have any separation. Schultz had a couple of catches, but nothing of any major damage. So I really like what I saw out of the secondary. They had 2 or 3 near miss interceptions. Devin White had one, probably would still be running if he'd have caught it. Great interception by Winfield on the coverage on Prescott before he got hurt. A couple of nice breakups by Mike Edwards, broke up a long ball down the sideline. So very encouraged by especially the back four, the secondary.
Absolutely, and you have to be encouraged also. What it's predicated on is the pass rush, and the pass rush definitely made a difference and made that back end that much better, especially Akeem Hicks and Vita Vea. You saw Hicks flash. You could see that he's going to be a big part of that defensive line. And going back to it, there's a lot of critics out there that said, you know what, the Bucs shouldn't have paid Carlton Davis because he doesn't have interceptions or doesn't get enough interceptions or enough turnovers. And that has been the emphasis in the offseason for that back end to take advantage and get those interceptions. So it was encouraging to see Winfield take advantage. And anybody saying that Carlton Davis didn't deserve that money, turn on the tape and watch him shut down a number 1 wide receiver in a CeeDee Lamb. He absolutely deserved it, and that's why he's one of the best corners in the league that nobody talks about.
4 sacks for the defense, 2 by Devin White, Anthony Nelson with a sack, Vita Vea with a sack. What I like, too, is you saw all the defensive linemen play. They were rotating guys all over the place. Logan Hall was in the game, Nelson, Shaq, obviously all the interior guys. So you played a lot of guys. Again, this first game, you always worry about playing too much, and you pull a groin, you pull a hamstring because you haven't played much in the preseason. They rotated a lot of guys, which is great to see. And then same on the back end. You saw a lot of guys in the secondary play, safety wise, and all that good stuff. So very encouraged by the defense. Again, we understand Dallas wasn't at full strength as far as offensive weapons, but that's what a good defense does, is you shut them out. You shut them down after that first drive. They basically didn't get a first down till the second half, damn near. So great job by Todd Bowles. And here's the other thing. They didn't commit penalties on defense. No illegal hands to the face, no holding, no PIs. The things that the Bucs DBs got in trouble with in years past, bad technique, which led to interferences and holding calls by especially Carlton Davis. You didn't see any of that on Sunday night.
Yeah, you've seen great technique, and you talk about Jamel Dean. You saw a play there where it looked like he had his arm or his hand on the guy's waist, but he was smart enough to not only tilt his head back, but also put his hand up and knock the ball down. And of course, they're not going to call it. And you're exactly right. The team that shot themselves in the foot last Sunday night was the Dallas Cowboys. So many penalties, so undisciplined. And we talk about it all the time, 5-10 yards, that's the difference between 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 15, right? And you get into those, manageable situations like the Bucs were the other night, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. After that, then basically you're expecting
The whole playbook's open.
Yeah, the whole playbook is open when you get into those manageable situations. But if not, you're throwing the ball. So you're basically handcuffed at that point. And that's exactly what Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were doing to themselves the other night, especially that offensive line, which we talked about on last week's show. They weren't very good. You're putting in Tyron Smith. He's not in there. Putting Tyler Smith as a guard. I just thought the defensive line dominated the offensive line, and then on top of it, helping that Bucs defense out with all those penalties.
And then obviously the defensive line caused the injury to Dak Prescott with the pressure by Barrett up the gut. He hit him on the thumb twice in a row, basically breaks his thumb. He's out, 6 to 8 weeks from all indications. So not that you're trying to get a guy hurt, but it just shows the pressure, the constant pressure and the attention that Dak was getting, and that how they were in his face, especially that second half. The second half, they were all over Dak in the passing game, and it was a very good sign to see if you're for the Buccaneer defense.
Agree.
All right, we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. We're going to let you listen to our buddy, our man, Paul Stewart. He's going to give you the montage of the New Orleans Saints history with the Buccaneers as the Bucs head to New Orleans on Sunday, 1:00 game. We're going to get you a full preview here in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to go to Paul Stewart, buckpower.com. Remember, for all your Bucs history, audio clips, information that you need, the day we're recording this, it's Brad Johnson's birthday today. Peter Blake, you know that?
I did not know that. Happy birthday, Brad Johnson.
Well, you would know that if you went to buckpower.com today. Exactly. There you go. Paul Stewart has it. Buckpower.com is your place for birthdays, audio clips, statistics, everything Bucs related, buckpower.com. And here is Paul Stewart with the historical montage with the Bucs and the New Orleans Saints. Okay, Buck fans, we are back. What a job by Paul Stewart, giving you a historical outlook of the Bucs Saints rivalry. Very storied rivalry over the years, our NFC South days, Drew Brees and all the the Ryan Fitzpatrick game a few years back. I mean, just give me a memory for you of the New Orleans Saints rivalry, Peter Blake.
I mean, it's Fitzpatrick there. I mean, starting out, what is that in 2000?
Is it 18 or 19? 18?
I thought it was 17.
Okay.
Next year when Jameis is, maybe I'm wrong, but that first game where they
it's magic, baby. It's magic.
Yes. Deshaun Jackson, of course, hooking up there a couple of times. So that was one memory there. And then, of course, I think it goes back to the playoff game. I mean, how can you forget about that? That catapulted this team to the NFC Championship. How many years in the regular season did the Saints dominate the Bucs? And then finally you get to that divisional playoff game. And to me, for most of that game, I think a lot of Bucs fans were like, oh, here we go again. But Winfield makes a great play. Devin White played strong. Sean Murphy bunting. And then, of course, Tom Brady and Lombardi Lenny. So I'll never forget that. I think that's probably the greatest memory of this matchup. And then there was another one. I believe the Bucs win like 16-11. And that is Dirk Cutter's first year where that team is starting to march and get confidence in their 8-5. And then after that, a couple weeks later, I believe they lose to the Saints and they're eliminated from playoff contention.
All right. Speaking of the Saints, in the NFC South in general, and also I'm going to get your opinion on something else. What were your thoughts of my man, Mr. Hackett out in Denver trying a 64-yard field goal and not going for it on 4th and 5 on Monday Night Football?
I have no idea why you get Russell Wilson in the first place. I mean, that's the reason why you pay the guy money, right? You're going for a 64-yard field goal instead of going for 4th and 5. Yeah. Really don't understand the decision-making. Really shocked that Seattle was in that game because I thought Denver was that much of a better team. But, it was a week of underdogs, Jason Powers. So, and at the end of the day, Russell Wilson, may be like Tom Brady in that he doesn't necessarily know that offense. He doesn't have all that chemistry with his wide receivers yet. So it may take some time. It may not necessarily be a flawless transition, if you will.
It doesn't help when you fumble twice on the 1-yard line either.
No, it doesn't help. I mean, and again, it goes back to the red zone. I mean, how important is that red area for teams? And you have to cash in, even just getting a field goal. And I get it. The Bucs had 4 out of 5 field goals the other night. Those are important points.
Yep.
If you get nothing, you open up those opportunities to the other team, and usually that team takes advantage. And guess what? They took advantage.
And you saw all around the NFL this weekend, week 1, which is such a wild week it was. Field goal kicking, special teams were huge in all these games. You had missed field goals. Then you had the guy in Cleveland make a 58-yarder, the rookie, to win it, to beat the Panthers. You had all the drama in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati with McPherson missing the extra point, then missing the short field goal in overtime, then Boswell missing one, and then Boswell finally making one. You had Rodrigo Blankenship in Indianapolis, misses a 42-yarder in Houston. He then gets cut on Tuesday by the Colts. I mean, and again, I've talked about it with you, how important I think the kicking game is. Even at the NFL level, it is vital. And again, when you have a good kicker, and again, why we kept Ryan Suckup probably over Borregales is the reliability. Yeah, he missed a 36-yarder that he shouldn't have missed, but he went 4 out of 5, and he made all the other ones he's supposed to make.
Exactly. And it's all three phases of the game, Jason Powers: offense, defense, and special teams. And if you're missing one of those facets, then it's going to cost you. And we saw it with good teams. Of course, it didn't help that, Burrow had 5 turnovers in that game. And to even say they're in that game at that point with all those turnovers is amazing. But for it to come down
to a blocked extra point,
extra point, and then a field goal kicker that's not able to make his kicks, that's disappointing. But again, that's a part of the NFL. You've got to have all those facets, all those key components to your game. And if you don't, then once again, you lose games.
And decision making by the head coaches. The decision in Seattle the other night. But other decisions that you saw guys go for it when they shouldn't and kick when they, these games are critical. This game in September might keep Denver out of the playoffs. This could be a game you look back in 3 months and say they didn't make the playoffs because of that. Or Cincinnati doesn't get a home game in the playoffs because of the missed extra points. And unlike baseball or basketball, when you play 82 games or 160 games, you can blow off a game here and there. In the NFL, the game in September means just as much in the game as the game in December.
It really does. And of course, it's all about getting into the playoffs, because if you can get into the playoffs and you get hot at the right time, you become the Cincinnati Bengals. But you're exactly right. You've got to get in. Especially against your division foes, which the Bucs have this week versus the Saints. But you're exactly right. There's only 16, 17 games a year, so you have to make them count.
And speaking of the Saints, you talk about a team getting let off the hook by the Falcons last week, down 26-10 in the fourth quarter.
The Falcons can't play defense. That's the thing. They've never been able to play defense. They've been a cursed team ever since Tom Brady was down 28-3. They have never been able to keep a lead. And I tell you right now, they have to be a gambler's delight or a gambler's nightmare, because if you're betting on the Falcons at that point, and then you see the Saints come back and you got a number line and you lose money because the Falcons play prevent defense, which basically prevents you from winning, because on Sunday they were blitzing Jameis Winston all day long, and then all of a sudden they decided, you know what, we're going to play back. We're going to get cute. We're running Cordero Patterson all these times. Guess what? We're going to throw the ball with Marcus Mariota, which, by the way, once again, if you have Marcus Mariota as your starting quarterback, you don't have a starting quarterback. Why are you getting away from Patterson? Why are you getting away from blitzing? I don't understand it, but that's what bad teams do. And guess what? The Falcons are a bad team.
I'll give them credit, though. They played really well for 3 quarters, and they were dominating the Saints. You mentioned Cordero Patterson had over 100 yards rushing, which is a good sign leading into this week with Fournette. Mariota didn't play terrible Sunday. He didn't throw 3 interceptions. I mean, this was a defensive game that was lost by the Falcons. Mariota played well enough to win the game.
Well, and then you play well enough to win the game. But, going back to the late, great Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were.
I get it. They're not very good. We get that. But give them credit. They played really well for 3.5 quarters, and they gave the same. And give Jameis Winston credit. They had in drives, they had to have it in the fourth quarter. He did it. He hit Landry. He hit Mike Thomas, Olave. And again, getting into this matchup this week, the Bucs defense is going to have to defend many more weapons than they had last week. You got 3 really good receivers. You got Kamara. You saw Taysom Hill run wild on a couple of runs on Sunday. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bucs decide to defend Jameis. And remember, Buc fans, the game in New Orleans last year was the game Jameis got hurt. He hurt his knee in the Buccaneer game, was done for the rest of the year. So will be very interesting to see how the Bucs play this New Orleans offense. What do you think the Bucs do? Blitz him, or do you think they play more coverage? What do you think the Buccaneers focus on defensively?
I mean, you can blitz him, you can do multiple various things, but at the end of the day, if you feel confident in your one-on-one coverage with Mike Thomas, which I think you can with Carlton Davis, you talk about Olave and Landry. I think you definitely blitz him, and I think that's the key to it. You got to blitz him. You got to force him to make those throws, and you got to put guys in his face to make him move around. You saw it last year. He was on track with 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And then Devin White, of course, with a legal tackle, by the way, that was not a horse collar.
Oh, yeah.
With a legal tackle, you got to get after him. We saw Jameis Winston when you blitz him. When you blitz him, you razzle him a little bit, you put something in his face, and you make him think. You don't play back in zone, although you could do various things. You could blitz him. You could change up your coverage looks. At the end of the day, I still don't believe that Jameis Winston is not going to give you a couple interceptions if you confuse him enough or put enough pressure. So I think you could do it a variety of ways. At the end of the day, you have to get pressure on any quarterback in the National Football League, especially a Jameis Winston.
Again, the matchup to me, I think to really look forward to as well, Buck fans. Devin White on Alvin Kamara in the passing game. That you're going to see a lot of Kamara. He's hurt us in the years past. Devin White's admitted, hey, I need to be better in coverage, zone coverage especially, but don't let Kamara kill us in the passing game. He's had a lot of big games in the passing game against the Buccaneers in years past.
And what does Mike Evans do against Marcus Lattimore? Because that is always the matchup, and it's either Lattimore winning it or Evans. I don't necessarily think that there's years where Evans doesn't get a piece of Lattimore, but it's a tough matchup. And then if they do decide to bracket coverage towards Evans, who's the guy that's going to step up? Is it going to be a Russell Gage? Is it going to be a Julio Jones? We don't think that Chris Godwin's going to play. Possibly a Scotty Miller, who is inactive. Maybe he gets an opportunity.
Perriman, maybe Perriman. Right.
Somebody has to step up because that is a tough matchup. And both of those guys go at it very well. And it's a primetime matchup. It really is. So who will step up on that other side of the field? Is it going to be Julio? Is it going to be Gage? Is it going to be Scotty Miller? Is it going to be Perriman? Who will it be? Jason Powers on Sunday.
I think you're going to see some more tight end catches this week. I think Brayton, Cam, and Otten, I think you're going to see in the mix, running that seam a little bit. I think this could be a play action, especially with the Buccaneers showing they can run the ball like they did. You're going to get that extra man, those linebackers biting up on the run. This is where Brady is great at the play action. Boom, you hit Cam Brate for 10 or 12 yards right over the linebacker's head, Cade Otten. So I think this is where you'll see some more tight end catches this week. And again, keep running the ball if you're the Buccaneers. Keep establishing that run. They showed they were vulnerable last week to Cordarrelle Patterson. Run the ball, balance. And again, this is where you're going to get your shot plays, the play action. Evans and Julio on the post routes or the go routes, the deep crossers, things like that they're really good at. And Julio knows his New Orleans secondary very well as well with all his experiences with the Falcons.
Absolutely. And that's what you have to look forward to. And at the end of the day, how important is this game? Because the Bucs have been completely dominated in the regular season by the Saints. Yep. And that bad taste is still in your mouth when you're losing to a backup third string quarterback last year. You're losing 9-0 at your house. So you have an opportunity here to go 2-0. And we know how important this game is, not only because it's against the Saints, but also a division, so it counts for 2. So basically, you put yourself in position at that point. I get it, it's early to be in that driver's seat.
And if you win this game, you get 9 out of the next 15 at home. 2 road games off the bat. You win this game, you get 9 out of the last 15 are in your building. Obviously, one of those games is in Germany, but still 9 home games in your house, as opposed to, with two tough road games out of the way, if you can get a W. All right.
Absolutely.
Give me a prediction, my brother.
I'm thinking about it right now. I go 27-20 Tampa Bay.
I'm going to be in the same neighborhood. I think it's going to be 27-23 kind of game. I think it's going to be a late defensive stop by the Buccaneer defense. And again, I think you're going to see a lot. This is a 1:00 game, Buc fans, not 4:00. So be there early, be ready. I was a little surprised that Fox didn't put this game at 4:30 unless they don't have CBS might have the late game this week. That might be why the game's early, because CBS probably has the late game. But I think you're going to see don't be surprised if you see Kevin Olson and Kevin Burkhardt on the call here in New Orleans on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I love it. Greg Olson, Kevin Burkhardt, that's your #1 crew this year for Fox, so we shall see how that plays out. I'm surprised because I thought it was a 4 o'clock game, and it's a 1 o'clock. And, of course, I'll be going to the Swamp this week with the legend Leo Haggerty, of course, my friend there, Travis Faley. So we'll be covering that game and then driving back and then more than likely trying to watch that game the next day. So it's going to be an unbelievable weekend of football.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good stuff. And again, there'll be a lot of Buck fans in New Orleans, I'm sure. Again, all your Buck information, buckpower.com. Paul Stewart, great job with the montage. Peter Blake, great job with the analysis. Tell everybody where they can find you online, all your great work.
Absolutely. The Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television, nightly on I Love St. Pete, the Hub, and Amped Up Sports on Facebook. And, of course, YouTube. Like and subscribe to the Sports Web and do 3 things. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
And remember, Buck fans, Buck Power TV YouTube channel. Paul Stewart also has his montages listed there. So go on to YouTube, search Buck Power TV. We're going to be doing some post-game stuff here in the next couple of weeks on Buck Power TV as well. So stay tuned for that. Remember, find us all your podcast. You're obviously listening. Tell your friends about the Buck Power No Quarter Given podcast on Buck Power, part of the buckpower.com podcast network. Tell your friends, subscribe, rate, and review for this podcast to all your Buck friends. Again, my podcast, Powers on Sports Podcast, Florida Football Insiders. If you're a college football fan, we talk all things Florida college football. No quarter given. Peter Blake's great work with the Sports Web. Lots of places to find your football fix, whether it's pro, college, NFL. We love it. We talk it all week long, and we appreciate you finding us, Buck fans. And again, Peter Blake 27-20. I'm going 27-23 Bucks. I'm going to go Cam Brate, game-winning touchdown this week. That's going to be my player to look for on offense. Cam Brate.
And for me, it's really easy for me. I think you keep on running the ball. The Leonard Fournette, he's in his house. He's in his hometown. It's time for him to have a big game. Look for Lenny over 100 rushing yards here and to be the catalyst of this offense this week.
Let's just keep Lenny out of Bourbon Street and all the gumbo restaurants on Saturday night.
Exactly.
No gumbo, Lenny. Ease up on the etouffee. No gumbo and no etouffee for you, Lenny, on Saturday night, brother.
That's great.
All right, Buck fans, we'll see you next week. Green Bay Packers are coming to town for the home opener. Aaron Rodgers, we'll see where they're at after their 0-1 start. But again, it'll be a great 4:25 kickoff for the home opener. And Buck fans, we will see you next time on the No Quarter Given podcast. Have a great week, Buck fans.
Go Bucks!
Here we go.